And we are back. What is going on? It's the Dedrique Taylor Coaches Show, hosted by yours truly, Brandon Marcus. But you're here because you want to hear the dulcet tones of the head coach of Cal State Fullerton, who has finally played a basketball game. Dedrique Taylor, what's up, dude?
Man, what's going on? It feels good, even though you didn't ask me that question. What it feels like, it still feels good. I'm gonna answer it for you. It feels great, and not necessarily for me. For our guys and their mental health and their well-being. It's something different to look down the line and compete against somebody that doesn't have the same emblem as you do. So I'm doing good. It's fun to be here, and I was looking forward to speaking to the people tonight.
It's funny because I texted you on Wednesday after that first game got canceled.
Yes,
And I
sir.
said, oh man, your guys' luck that you guys have a game canceled. Hopefully you get that Friday one. You text me back, you go, yeah, it could get canceled. And then it's on Friday,
Yeah.
game canceled. I'm like, oh my God, this guy cannot catch a break. I can't even imagine what was going through your mind, first of all, on Wednesday and then on Friday. I mean, that must have been just torture.
Yeah, it was. It was torture, and I responded and reacted probably in the wrong way in front of our team. But I felt like if it weren't for bad luck, I don't know that we would have any, quite frankly. And that was Wednesday what I was feeling, and then I absolutely said it on Friday. Like
Was
this,
it anger or sadness or both?
both. Probably disappointment more than anything, because they come in, we're at shoot around and we're having a pretty good shoot around, the guys' energy level, and they're focused on having an opportunity to play somebody else and getting out on the floor and just, trying to express themselves. And so that was probably more out of frustration and disappointment that they don't get that opportunity to do that. And so we scratch Wednesday, and so we say, okay, well, Friday we'll at least get this chance, and we got two Division I teams and the testing and blah blah blah, blah, and then boom, they come up with a coach who test positive, and that sent us into a tailspin. And quite frankly, that one was, I think, a little more difficult because it was shortly before we found out that we weren't going to play. Shortly before we were about to load the bus to drive down there, and the facial expressions, and I think I could feel the energy leave the room as soon as I said something. And they kind of knew and kind of were skeptical because I said, hey, don't get on the bus. We'll meet in the locker room. Automatically, I had their attention.
Mm-hmm.
But then, when I said those words, it just, to me, it just, again, their emotion and their mental capacity, I could easily see it going the other way. And so we quickly had to galvanize those guys. And thankfully, to their credit, to each of the 13 guys that were in the locker room, to their credit, they bounced back and came back, and we practiced the following day. And then obviously, of course, we played San Diego Christian on Sunday. And I was just happy, to get to the tip off. Once the refs threw the ball up, I was happy at that point.
Yeah, I'm sure on Friday, you're like, what are we doing here? Well, it's just like let's scrap the season. I mean, like at this point, you guys were shut down. You guys then have two games canceled. I mean, you're like, all right, just forget it. I mean, it's one of those things where you're trying to climb a ladder, you're waiting for the ladder. Finally, it comes. You start climbing up, you fall down. You climb up again, you fall down. You're like, screw it, man. I'm just
Yeah.
throwing the ladder to the side. I'm going inside and I'm watching TV. I mean, it
Yeah.
must be such a hopeless feeling.
Now there was a part of me that thought that thought, what, let's just scrap it. Let's just say forget it, and let's just see what happens in the next month, and get ready for that, and try to be the best that we can. But more so, not because I didn't want to play, more so for the mental roller coaster that the guys were on. Like you
Mhm.
said, you see the ladder, you get on the ladder, and you start making climb, and you get to a point to where you feel like you're going to have a challenge, and then all of a sudden, you're knocked back down. And so that was definitely a part of the emotional roller coaster that we experienced, at least for me. For our guys, I think they kind of went through it a little bit, and probably not as deep as I did, because of they just bounced back and they're resilient on Saturday. And like I said, they had a good practice on Saturday, and we came out and played fairly decent on Sunday.
Let's talk about that game. The first game, finally, you got able to get one in the books. You guys win 94-70. Started off really well. You guys led by 40 plus in the game. You must have been pretty happy with your performance. And just like we were just saying, I mean, just the first thing you need to do is be focused and play basketball and don't be careless. I mean, you could easily go into a game and just be sloppy and lackadaisical and lose a game like that. So you must have been happy with the way you guys at least started. You guys came out and you seemed like you were ready to play.
Yeah, the guys were ready to play and they had a point to prove. And I would say the first half we proved that point. We did a lot of things good. There's a lot of obviously things that we need to clean up and be better at. But in the first half, I thought we shared the ball really well. We rebounded really well. We ran the floor really well. There are a lot of things defensively as well that we did good, which I'm a big proponent of allowing our defense to start us out on our offense. And we did that. In the second half, we were probably equally as bad or not as good as we would like to, but we were up a large sum of points. And it's really hard to keep anyone's attention when you're up that many. But then you put into the account, you have to deal with the COVID and all of these different distractions and all of these different things. And so, just something as simple as how we were sitting on the bench and how far we were from each other. And then I
Mhm.
look back and there's 3 rows behind me, and I'm like, hey, that's one of my guys. Hey, how you doing back there? It's weird. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. But trying to get used to that is was one of the reasons why we were fortunate enough to play the game and trying to understand what that is going to look like from now on moving forward. And so I think we got our feet wet. Um, it gave us an opportunity to put some stuff on film to learn from a coaching perspective,
Mhm.
to get better, I hope, and to understand the importance and the significance of buy-in and why it's important. I feel like we're at a crossroads with this group. We're really, really talented. They know they're talented, but they also know talent doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to win. They still have to put in the work. But I think the buy-in to putting in that work is still in question. I don't know that this group is totally bought in just yet. Um, Trusting the coaches that what we say is true.
Mhm.
This and this. If you don't do this, this is going to happen. And so I'd hate for us to lose a couple of games to prove that point. But that's always on the horizon.
Yeah, no, it'll happen. I mean, you'll get one of those games that they may be high with confidence, and then all of a sudden you lose a game once conference play starts, and
Yeah.
slap them around a little bit, like, in terms of just not actually slapping around, but it wakes them up a little bit. It gives a splash of water onto you to wake you up, and that's exactly what you need. And for sure. Wait for a second. I want to go back. So the spot on the bench, quote unquote. So did you like where your chair was situated? Is this the thing where you're going to change the seat that you go to next time? Because I think you were what, three or four the third or fourth chair
I think I was the
down.
fourth chair down.
Yeah.
Uh,
How do we feel about that positioning?
I realized during the game that I didn't like it. And I thought to myself, well, what can you do? And then it dawned on me, hey, coach, you can actually get up and move down there if you want. Like you could do that. And so I actually got up and went and stood down there and like saw actually the defense part of things. So it took me a while to come to that conclusion and to understand that I could actually get up.
You thought you were stuck in your seat.
Yeah, I thought I was because of the COVID measures. I thought I was stuck, and I was like looking around, like, well, should I ask Coach Dunson or should I ask Coach Arginal? Nah, let's just get up and make them tell me to sit down because I didn't want to make myself look any stupider than I already felt.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And now you can see, all right, what we can do the next couple games is you can take a different seat and see which view you like the most
Yeah,
and then go from there.
I hope so. I hope so. But even trying to get used to our timeouts. Like I asked the ref, like it's a full timeout. Okay, we have these seats. But during the 30, where are we supposed to stand? Where do you want us to stand? And we were like having a conversation about it. And before we got the answer, the timeout was over. So who knows what the heck was going on?
That's great. And then the one thing that I'm sure you already experienced, and you're going to experience it more during the actual season, as you continue to go, is you're going to look for someone to bring in, and you're going to have no idea where they're sitting. You're going to be
Yeah,
looking around to your left, to your right, and by the time you want to get them to sub in, the ball's already been thrown in. You can't sub them in.
no question that's going to happen. And don't tell anybody I said this, but I'm not great with names. And so I will look at a person and I will honestly ask them, what's your name? You. Yeah, go in the game. That's going to happen a lot this year.
I'm honored that you knew my name from the start. Then
Oh yeah.
we were good to go, so I'm
Oh yeah.
honored that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The important people, I'll never forget those guys.
Oh man. All right. So the game, we talked about how your team is one that you're going to get multiple players. They're going to be in double figures that you don't think is going to be one guy. Obviously, we knew going into this season that Wayne was going to be a guy that was going to be a focal point of your offense. Man, he was efficient. 19 points, 7 of 9, 5 of 6 from deep. He must have impressed you in that first game.
Yeah, I think he shot the ball really, really well. It was good for him to see some of those balls go in. And I think also what his teammates did was is in that first half, they were looking for him and allowing him to get the shots that we've been practicing on. And obviously Wayne was able to produce those guys, obviously those shots and for our guys. And I think the biggest thing also we had a big advantage on the inside
Mm-hmm.
throwing the ball to Vincent. And one of the best things that Vincent does is obviously he'll take what the off or what the defense will give him, and whether it's scoring, but he's becoming way more apt passing and sharing the basketball with those guys. And I think they're not nowhere anywhere near as reluctant to throw the ball in and play inside out. And I think Wayne did that. I think Wayne had another couple of opportunities for him to play with a big guy and play a two-man game, what we call a two-man game, and get some good looks that way as well. And so that was definitely one of the highlights is that we were able to see the ball go in and see it go in efficiently and at a very, very high clip. 7 of 9 is probably about as good as you can be.
I mean, you guys shot really well. And it's one thing to say, all right, well, the opponent may not be the caliber you're going to face in conference, but it doesn't matter who you're facing to face an actual defense and still shoot 55%, including 44% from deep. And also, you must have been happy 9 of 11 from the free throw line. I mean,
Yeah.
that's damn good, Dedrick. That is
Yeah.
really good.
I think it says a lot to our coaching staff in terms of the way that we have been able to recruit. We have a lot of guys, or I should say some guys that can shoot the ball and shoot the ball well. The one thing that we've been encouraging them to do is two things, I should say. We say we've been encouraging to exercise the extra pass. And then we've also been encouraging them to shoot versus air. And that I think changes a lot of the mindset. But then also those guys can shoot at a high clip versus air. And so we've been practicing that, and that's going to be a part of who we are, moving forward in terms of, the extra pass. And to go back to your earlier point, when you play the game that way, you're going to have multiple guys in double figures,
Mhm.
as opposed to one or two guys that have 20 or 25 points. You're going to have three or four, maybe five guys around that 10 to 15 to 16 point mark. And that's something that I think we want to do because we have guys in our program that can do that. And I don't think we saw the best of them just yet. They were putting their toe in the water and trying to get a feel for it and try to get a feel for each other in a short amount of time.
Mhm.
But I think over the long run, the more we're on the floor together in that type of situation in a game format, what I'm hopeful is that you will see them begin to share the ball at an even higher clip than they did on Sunday. I think they had 22 assists, 11 turnovers, and I don't know that we've ever done that before. That margin is a lot closer.
Yeah, 2 to 1. That's pretty good assist to turnover ratio. I mean that's going to win you ball games, and the one beneficiary of being able to be such be an offense that where the ball flows so well and not relying on one guy is if one person's having an off night, then
Yeah.
you're still able to share the ball and get to other people for open shots. I mean, if you're able, it doesn't matter how good other teams are. If you're able to shoot the way you are, then that'll win ball games. That'll play.
No question. No question. I was watching the Miami Heat play tonight. I don't know if they ended up winning or beating New Orleans, but they were playing tonight. And immediately that attracted me to the game was just their ball movement and how those guys were sharing the ball and shooting versus air. And they took a couple of shots at the last minute or last second there because they had to. And again, those shots went in, but they were stationary shots. And it wasn't just one person, right? It was three or four or five other people. There was none. It was three or four of those guys. I don't know them by name, but
Duncan Robinson is
yeah,
another
all
guy,
those guys,
hero. Yeah.
yeah, all those guys took turns, and it was almost like I'm open, but I think he's way more open. And then that guy caught it, and he's like, I'm open, but I think he's way more open. And so when you have that type of mindset that is promoted by the players, you can't help but to have a level of productivity from everybody that's on the floor.
You said shoot or air. What's the set? What does air mean for people that don't know?
Shooting versus air, that means nobody's around, nobody's guarding you. Like
Mhm.
there's nothing in front of you but air. Literally, you shoot versus air versus, a contested shot. Somebody is contesting or coming at you, and they're somehow, some way getting a hand at your shot. We feel like if you are contested, you should pass it.
Mhm.
Unless it's 5 seconds or lower in the shot clock. Obviously, you got to get. But even then, the more the ball moves, we'll get an open shot because the pressure is not on us. The pressure, in our opinion, is on the defensive end.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you look at the game and you see the minutes played, the most anyone played was 24. Fitness wise, how'd the team look?
I thought they were good. I thought they responded really, really well. I think we had some not heavy minute guys, but you could tell there were some guys that were breathing heavily.
Mhm.
That's just going to have to be something that we have to watch moving forward. And one of the good things that we have is depth. We played a lot of guys, and there's a lot of guys with a lot of ability, and so we will rely on that depth, especially getting into conference time when we play Friday, Saturday, that second game in the second half, when you really want to try to separate yourself from the team. We're hoping that we can by way of depth. And that's something that's important to us moving forward.
We did our roster show last episode and we did not touch on it, but we were wondering whether Trey was going to be um, able to play this season and whether he was going to get cleared. And he was cleared. What does that mean for you guys going forward?
It's a huge, huge deal because he's been practicing with us as though he's going to be eligible. And so, from a team chemistry and a team rhythm standpoint, obviously that goes without saying. But I think also the guys are starting to rally around each other, and Trey is a big proponent of that because of his experience. He's already played 2 years at a Division One program, and so he knows what winning and losing looks like and what it feels like. And so you can hear his voice sometimes, you can feel his presence sometimes, trying to encourage the guys to play a certain way or do a certain thing. And again, Trey just, I'm short or almost going short of saying he's dynamic, which is what I think he is. He's a guy that can play make for himself. He can play make for others. And then defensively, he's a guy that can really, really lock down and get it going. And he can rebound and get right into a drag. He can do a lot. Just getting him to buy into those things and impacting the game across the board, not in just one area, is going to be really important for him. But it's music to our ears to have him on the floor and available to us, and I think it helps us um, improve our depth moving forward.
And he was the only starter that didn't finish in double figures. So it kind of shows you that the leadership was probably the most important part
Yeah,
of what he gave you guys in that game, correct?
no doubt. His leadership, and he was I would say he was on a mission to set other guys up.
Hmm.
To not necessarily take an open shot, but I'm going to give it to this guy because I think he's wide open, and he would encourage guys to make those shots, and he wanted to be the guy that kind of showed, hey, I don't need to score, I can do this, and I can pass, and I can do other things to impact our game, which obviously he did. And again, I think the more that those guys are on the floor with each other, the more they'll start to understand that, and more importantly, the more they will buy into that. That's going to be the key for us moving forward, is buying into each other and what each other does to help us all be successful.
Who impressed you the most in the first game?
Obviously, you have to say Wayne, just because he shot it so efficiently. Vincent, I think his maturity on the floor in terms of how he's making his moves and what he's doing, just his overall poise and how he's handling himself. I think it's night and day from this time last year to now. And again, Trey, what he did, but I think the guy that probably was really impressive was Torrey. He's probably an unsung hero because of his energy. He created a lot of points off of just energy plays,
Mhm.
effort plays. And then he was able to knock down a couple of threes, again, shooting versus air. But I thought he could defend 1 through 4, and create some opportunities for our ball club by causing turnovers and doing things that don't necessarily show up in the scores table or the scores book. but they're huge. They make a huge impact on allowing us to win.
5 assists, 2 steals. I mean that'll play. I mean that's something that you can't ask for much more than that, especially when someone is efficient, going 5 of 8, making both of their free throws.
Yeah.
I mean that's it's solid. I mean, free throw shooting is something that always seems to come out throughout a season, and always is something that wins and loses ball games. And you may look at the final score and say, all right, well, we missed 7 free throws and we lost by 9. And you say, well, it may not have made a difference. At the same time, I mean, missed free throws really could be deflating for a team. And a made free throw will continue a run, it can end a run. So, is that something that you guys have been focusing on this season? Because it's a good start at least.
Yeah, it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's something that is super, super important. I thought last year we didn't shoot it as well as we are capable of shooting it. I think we were in the 60%, and that's awful in my
Mhm,
opinion, especially if you're a team that leads the conference in free throw attempts.
mhm.
You literally are giving away points by not making those free throws. And again, moving forward, it's a point of emphasis, and we've tried to make it a point of emphasis of not only getting to the free throw line, but then when you're there, being efficient with those things. And that's going to be a point of emphasis for us moving forward. We feel like, that's a part that we learned from last year, that wins and loses games. I've been on this kick about, what travels and allows you to win. What travels, and what I mean is you can take it in anywhere, and it gives you an opportunity to win. I feel like defensively that travels, rebounding that travels,
Mhm.
free throw shooting is something that travels, because you have to get there, and then two, once you're there, you have to reward yourself for getting there. And if you do, like you said, it could end a run, it could start a run, it could continue a run, it can allow you to set your press up. There's a lot of different positive things that come out of free throw attempts and free throw making, and we feel like it's something that allows you to win games.
So overall, how would you grade your performance?
Overall, I'd probably say a a B, low
Okay.
B. I probably am a harsh grader. I
Mhm.
really want to give them a C, but
That's not bad though.
considering all of the factors that were involved in terms of us, not being able to play, having shoot arounds and practices, and then being told you can't go, and
Mhm.
all of the things, I thought our guys came out with the purpose. They were poised, especially in the first half. They were focused. They were driven by the scouting report. And the scouting report, I'm saying, like, doing things the right way. There's a big difference in that, doing things the right way. And then the second half, we weren't as effective and weren't as focused, I didn't feel like, and so we weren't as efficient with those things. But I would say, a low B, high C, maybe. Um, Again, considering all the information that we have available to us.
Yeah, it's not bad. You'll take that for the first game of the season because you give them an A. There's nowhere to go from there, you know.
Yeah,
So
no,
you
no,
you'll take that.
yeah, any day of the week, I'll take that.
Yeah,
And A's are hard to get. You gotta really be on your stuff to get an A.
yeah. A is the performance to get yourself to the NCAA tournament. That's when you deserve an A, is in those types of games.
No doubt.
All right. So going forward, you have Pacific, I believe, on Saturday.
Yeah.
Is that it before conference?
We're going to try to play Pacific on the 19th. We're going to try to play somebody else on the 21st, and then another school on the 23rd.
Oh well.
That seems like a lot, and it is a lot, but under the circumstances, we've only played one game.
Hmm.
And so try to get those games in before Christmas, because right after Christmas on the 27th and 28th, we'll play Big West Conference game, our first games, and we'll play Northridge. And so trying to do what we can to try to get ready for that is it's important to try to squeeze in as many games as you can, because you lost the opportunity to have those games. And so we're going to try to play the 19th, the 21st, and the 23rd, and see where we are.
Yeah, and you got to assume that you schedule 3 games, and you got to assume that one of them will probably get canceled. So
Yeah,
that's the benefit of, you may look at it and you say, all right, well, that's crazy to have 5 games in a 9-day span. But
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's possible that you don't have those 5 games.
And you have to play the percentages according to us.
Yeah.
Those percentages are really, really high.
Yeah.
You know, those percentages are really, really high. And again, we're talking about guys that are younger. They're still not in shape the way we would love them to be able to handle the workload. but I feel like they're in shape enough. And again, we feel like we have the necessary depth to help us in that department. We just feel like we need to roll out the balls and go play and get a chance to be under the lights, so to speak, and see what works, what doesn't work, and coach them up in this way and let them loose in that way. And so we just, we need information, and that's the best way to get the information that we need is to play other people.
Well, let's get some information from you as we hit up the mailbag. D Taylor Coaches Show at gmail.com is where you can email the coach. It's D Taylor Coaches Show at gmail.com. Let's go. Number one, coach, from Patrick in Green Bay, Wisconsin,
Wow.
graduate from the class of 2006. Hey,
Wow.
Coach Taylor, how often are you guys tested? And what is the turnaround for test results? Also, are the same standards for each conference in the NCAA?
They are not. The standards are definitely different. They are trying to mirror each other, but the conferences will have their set of standards, and then each school is located in its own county, and so you kind of have to abide by the county and so on and so forth. And so every conference though is different. Like we're going to try to play, I think, the West Coast Conference, and we're looking at playing the Pac-12. Those two conferences, their testing standards or procedures are not necessarily the same in terms of how many tests,
Mm-hmm.
when you have to test. They're not the same, but we are almost testing every other day. Um,
And how long does it take to get the results back?
we get them back. I think the guys within 24 hours. Like basically, if I take a test at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning, more times than not, I'll get the results by 9 or 10 o'clock that night. And so,
Wow.
yeah, it's a 24-hour deal. So basically, if we do take a test on a Monday, we're giving ourselves the chance to get the results back on Tuesday, but most time they'll come back the same day.
Wow. I mean, that's great. I mean, that just shows you how far we've come in terms of testing and how
Yeah,
important it is to have those because once you get into conference, you're going to be playing games Friday and Saturday. And so it may come back clean on Tuesday from the Monday test or that day on Monday, but then you have Wednesday and so you're able to make sure everything flows. And the more you're able to test and the quicker that you get the turnaround time,
yeah,
the easier it is to ensure that the game will go on.
yeah. And I think the refs, and I think the other teams, like so Bethesda, some of the other teams that we've played, they can take a test, and I think it's within 14 to 14, 15 minutes, we can get the antigen results back. And so the refs can test, the other team can test, and as long as they test negative on the antigen, it's fine. And normally we do the antigen the day of the game. With a lot of schools, we do it the day of the game, and so it could come back in an hour, it could come back 15 minutes, or somewhere in that window, so to speak.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good.
All right, let's finish up with Tim Vincent, who once again hits us up. A big thank you to Tim for reaching out again. Hey, coach, which teams in the conference do you feel will be the most difficult teams to play against and why?
Everybody,
Hmm.
they'll be really, really difficult. That's the beauty of conference, is that teams will have an opportunity to scout you different. They'll have information that they can use against you. Um, and so everybody will be really, really difficult. I think you have to tip your hat to Irvine just because they've won it the last 3 or 4 years. I think Santa Barbara has done a really good job in terms of recruiting, in terms of the way that they play. Hawaii's always tough. But then we also added two schools in our conference, Bakersfield, who I know they play extremely hard. They're very, very athletic. And again, they'll be really, really tough. UC San Diego, I think they'll be tough just because of who they are, and they have a chip on their shoulder going from Division II to Division I. That won't be an easy task. But then you look at a place like Northridge. They just beat Pepperdine at Pepperdine by about 6 or 7 points. I think they put up 94 points. And so again, with their system, they become really, really difficult to defend, and you have to be able to score against them as well. So every night you'll have your work cut out for you. Even playing on a Friday and a Saturday, Friday's game probably will look different than Saturday's game, just simply because of there's more information, there's more of what you can do, what you shouldn't do.
Hmm.
It'll be available to you, and so I expect the conference race to be as tight as it always is. 1 or 2 games separating 7 or 8 teams. That's the Big West, and that's what we've come to grown to love and appreciate. Being in the Big West is that every night is competitive. Every night's competitive, and then I also have to mention the biggest monster of them all is the COVID.
Hmm.
That might knock out 1 or 2 teams just because it's still running rampant, and we have to acknowledge it, and we have to pay homage to it by not doing anything. And so if someone does catch the virus, it's a different story.
Yeah, and you could shut you down for 10 days, 14 days, who knows how long. And it all depends on when that positive test comes. If it comes right before the game, then all of a sudden you could see yourself out for 4 games. And
Yeah,
next thing you know, that's 4 games that you can't make up and you're behind in the standings. So
no
you're
question.
right. I mean, as crazy as it is to think that the biggest opponent is not an actual team,
Yeah,
it definitely is possible. And
yeah,
so you got a game on Saturday. So most likely our next episode, we'll probably try and get this one out. We're recording now on a Monday. I'm assuming we'll try and record maybe Sunday and
yeah.
preview the games ahead.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, I mean, if anybody is listening, watching, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe, hit that thumbs up. It does help. And also, if you leave a comment below, so we can check that out as well. And of course, wherever you're listening to your podcasts, if you're on the Apple Podcast, rate and review, go 5-star rating, review it as well. It always does help. Coach, big thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to this opportunity to speak with you, and then obviously speak to all the viewers and the listeners, and hit us up on the mailbox. I enjoy that. Thanks, Vincent, for sending something every week for us to answer. Gives us something to talk about. But I this is why we do the show, to be able to answer the questions of the people that watch the show and that have interest in our program. And so hit us up. We're not scared to answer anything.
That's true. We'll hit you up next time on the D Taylor Coaches Show.
Take care.